Hello and blessings to you. In this video, we'll cover chapter 28 of our first Hebrew primer, and we'll be looking at the niphal pattern. First, let's do a couple of these oral reviews. First, we have Vayasa Abraham et ha-mitzvah ki malku tziva oto la asota. Okay, and this is well, first, I guess let's run through these diagnostics of the verbs. So we start out here with va yasa or va ya'as. Okay. We can see we have a vav conversive out front, and then probably an imperfect third masculine form. Looking further to singular. So here we have, let me not cover that up too soon. Here we have a 3ms imperfect. And we only have 2 letters left, but because it's this form and a vav conversive, we might assume this missing letter could be a hey, right? And this could be a clipped form. So ayin, sin, hey is a verb that we recognize as asa, do or make. So this is and he made, because the imperfect flips to the perfect with this vav conversive. So, and he made or and he did. So, and Abraham, let's say did, here we have the direct object marker, and we know that because of the context of what's coming next. It could also be with, but that won't make sense here, and we'll see that in a second. So, and Abraham did the command. So, it wouldn't make sense to say, and Abraham did with the command. That doesn't make any sense. So, and Abraham did the command because, here we have the word for king with a pronominal suffix, a 3ms, so his king, because his king, here we have the PL verb for command, and it's a 3ms form, right? So, his king commanded oto, obviously our direct object marker with a pronominal suffix, again 3ms, commanded him la asota. So we can see again our verb asa here with a lamed out front tips us off right away that this is an infinitive. There's something different going on at the end here though, and we can see that this is a 3fs pronominal suffix. So to do it, okay, and the it is referring back up to this command, and so it takes that feminine singular form. Okay, so altogether we have, and Abraham did the command because his king commanded him to do it. Okay, second line. Again, we have our clipped form. You can see that this is going to be the same, except there is a hey comments at the end. Now, this is a little tricky because we expect a hey to be here, right, with a sa already, and we might not recognize that this is a clipped form, except that this comments would not be here at the end. Now, if you're not very familiar with all the vowels, that's okay. You can still see that it's very rare for us to end a Hebrew word with an open syllable like this, with especially a hey comments like this. If you were expecting a hey at the end, it's probably a comments hey, like we have in other words up here. So this kind of tips us off that this is the pronominal suffix, right? Because when the pronominal suffix attaches to a verb, for whatever reason, the comments comes after the hey. And we saw that in the last chapter. I don't know that I explicitly pointed that out, though, so let's go back up and see if we can find the paradigm. I guess there wasn't a paradigm, strictly. Here we go. So here we have it right here. So it ends in hey comments for the 3FS form. Again, hey comments. Typically, let's see, was that chapter 22? Yeah, typically we expect a comments hey, but when it's attached to a verb, we get a hey comments. And so that's what tips us off here, that's what's going on. So we have the clipped form with a pronominal suffix. So, and he did it. And he did it, Abraham. So, and Abraham did it because his king commanded him. So here we have sivahu. So we see that this hey drops out because it's weak. And it's replaced by the hey shurik of the 3ms pronominal suffix that attaches to the verb. So just a reminder from our last chapter that that's what happens with the 3ms form. Let's see, where was that? Yeah, right here. So the 3ms form takes a hu instead of the holem vav. Okay, so and then again to do it, same as up here. So altogether we have, and Abraham did it because his king commanded him to do it. Okay, so a lot going on, but you all already have the pieces up to this point, so we just have to keep all of those in mind as we move forward. So let's do the second one as well. So here we have Yareti ki tashlik oti marosh ha'etz lahimit oti. Okay, and that gives us, here we might first think, okay, this looks like ra'ah, right? It perhaps does. But if it's ra'ah, it looks like it has a third masculine prefix of the imperfect, but it has a first singular suffix of the perfect. So we know we can't have something like that. That doesn't make any sense. So something else must be going on. And this is kind of the stronger ending, at least this is what I would identify first. That kind of tips me off that we don't have ra'ah, we have yara. So yara is fear or be in awe of. So this is I feared, so it's a first common singular perfect of yara. I feared that tashlik, so we can see that we have a hifil in the imperfect, right? Here's this hirik yod. We have a longer vowel than we're used to in the pa'al stem. So this is a hifil, imperfect. Okay. Specifically then, we have a second feminine ending to it. So I'm sorry, second masculine, actually. So we have tashlik. This shva at the end kind of threw me off. Tashlik, this kaf is not the ending, it's the word shalak. So this is our word in the hifil that means throw. So I feared that you will throw, or you would throw, you might throw. Remember, we have a little bit of flexibility with the imperfect. So I feared that you might throw. Ot is the direct object with a pronominal suffix, first common singular, so me. I feared that you would throw me, marosh, from the top, ha'etz, of the tree. So you can see I kind of already pulled the forward because I saw what was following. This is a word pair, so treat them together, pull the definite forward. So from the top of the tree, lahamit, we see perhaps we see mut right here, die. We see that it is a infinitive construct with this lamed, and then we see that there's a hiphil. So to cause me to die, or to kill ot, me. So I feared that you would throw me from the top of the tree to kill me. Okay? Second line. The ira, so now we have a vav conversive, imperfect, first common singular, right, because of this aleph. Same verb, yara. So this kind of shows you the difference between the perfect and the imperfect here. So, but because of the vav out front, we'll still translate it the same. So I feared that tashlikeni. So here we have the same word. You would throw, just instead of ot. Now we have a noon hirik yod. If you remember, that's what we expect when suffixed to a verb for the first common singular. So you would throw me, and then again from the top of the tree, and then to cause to die, and then again we have this first common singular suffix ni, so me, so to kill me. So and I feared that you would throw me from the top of the tree to kill me. Okay, let's move on to our vocab. Okay, so first we have ozen, azanayim, ozen, azne, that means ear. Chatat, chatat is sin or transgression. Koach, koach, you can see there, this is a furtive patak under this ket, so it's pronounced before the chet. So choach, koach, actually. So strength is what this means. Kanaf, kanafayim, kanaf, kanfe, means wing. And then we have lamed chet mem, and then niphal means fight. Notice that it has the same root letters as lechem, food or bread. I don't think these two words are related though, but I could be wrong. I don't think so. And it should be pretty easy to identify this word because it appears in the niphal, and so it will have a noon out front. So, and we'll talk about that in a second as we get to the chapter. Next is nahar, naharot, nahar. This is the word for river. And be careful that you don't confuse this with na'ar, noon ayin resh, for a young man or lad or youth or something. This is nahar with a hey, and the hey is verbalized here as well. So they sound pretty similar, not exactly. So na'ar, young man, nahar, river. Okay, next we have oaf. Oaf means bird. The way I remember this word is by the English word oaf, meaning like a fool, and I think of maybe bird-brained, like a foolish person. So oaf. Then I have par, parim, par means bull. Para, parot means cow. Notice that these come from the same word. They are literally just a masculine form and a feminine form. So it should be pretty easy, especially tying those together. Tzedakah, tzedakah, tzedkat means righteousness. Shemesh means sun. I think this is a rather fun word, and just because it's fun, it's easy for me to remember. Shemesh. Next word is safa, safatayim, safat, sifte, means lip, edge, or shore, or language. You can see how all of these kind of have things in common, although pretty wide translation variance here. So you can see maybe the base of this is lip or lips, and you can see that the quote-unquote plural form is actually dual, right? So shafatayim instead of shafatim. So it has this idea of two lips, right? Not the flower. Two is in the number in lip. Okay, and lips are a sort of edge, right? And a shore is like the edge between land and water. So I mean, you can kind of see kind of the progression here. But then language ties back to lip. So in the same way, language can come from the word like tongue. Your lips are so a part of speaking that, I don't know, it's just tied together. So this is safa. Then just quick note, chatat, koach, and oaf are collective nouns. So in English we might translate them plural, depending on context. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this next section. We've talked about it last class session, actually. We've already learned our 3 active stems. So remember there are 7 stems. Here are 6 of them. The active ones are the pa'al, or the cow, just our normal verb, simple sort of action. PL, our intensive action, and the hifil, our causative action. So these are all active. And so here's some examples of that. We have shamar, he guarded, deber, he spoke, habi, he brought. So these are active because the subject of the verb is the actor of the verb instead of being acted upon. So in passive voice, the subject is acted upon. It's action that is done to the subject of the sentence. So for instance, maybe he was guarded, he was spoken about, he was brought. Those would be passive voice versions of this. Well, so each of our active stems have kind of a correlating passive stem. So in the pa'al, we have the niphal, which is what this chapter is about. In the pl, we have the pu'al, and in the hifil, we have the hofal. So again, note that this is a commentative here, hofal. So the pu'al and the hofal patterns are very, very rare in the Bible, and so for that reason, I guess the authors are choosing not to include them in this text. If you are interested, though, on page 384, they do present some of these to us. Okay, so last thing I did want to mention, the next chapter is about the hitpael, and that goes here with the intensive stems. So the chart that we showed last week is kind of sideways from this. We have our simple action, our intensive action, and our causative action, active and passive voice. And then we also have a reflexive kind of meaning. And if you remember, the niphal can be passive or reflexive. So it could be over here as well. So it goes in both of these. But our intensive stems have its own reflexive sort of action, and that's called the niphal. And we'll go over that some more in the next chapter. It's niphal, I think, is how this will play out, but we'll see in the next chapter. I'm not quite sure the spelling of this paradigm word. But, so these are the 7 stems. Okay, so again, just going through these, we have the pa'al, the pl, the hifil. Okay, the pa'al is our simple active, pl is our intensive active, and hifil is our causative active. Then we have the niphal is our simple passive, the pual is our intensive passive, and the hofal is our causative passive. Then we also, the niphal can be reflexive at times, and then our intensive reflexive is the niphal. Okay, so these are the 7 main verbs. Now there is one extra one, an 8th one, that is rarely used, and it is actually only used with one word, and that word is, I think actually I have it pulled up right here. That word is chet vav yod, or chet vav he, and it means to prostrate oneself, or worship, or something along those lines. And the stem that it is in is called the hishtafel. Now, I don't need you to memorize this by any means. I just wanted to give you a little familiarity with it, just so you know. It does have a reflexive active or reflexive voice to it as well. So that's why it's prostrating oneself. And then we might say it's worship at that point. Kind of a neat thing, it is in our book of Ruth. Ruth fell down with her face to the ground. So she prostrated herself like that. I'm not quite sure, but the way that this website has it laid out, it makes it seem like these might be the only instances. It is pretty rare. I'm not sure if it's this rare that it's only 6 times, but yeah, and this is called the hishtafel. So let's kind of look at this. This would be hishtachava. So hishtachava is he prostrated himself. Okay. Don't want to spend too long on there, although actually I did want to mention one other thing from that. We're not really sure where it comes from. Our best guess is that it comes from Ugaritic, which is another Semitic language that actually uses cuneiform instead of the Hebrew alphabet. And we think it's similar to the niphal, maybe expressing causative action. Not really sure. But so, yeah. We'll move on. Okay, so 7 main stems, an 8th one that is rarely ever used, and that's about it. Okay, so in this chapter we're going to specifically be talking about the niphal pattern. So remember, that is simple passive. Okay, so for instance we have amar, which might be he said. Then if we had nimar, it would be he was said. We have gather, and in the niphal this would be gathered. Build, be built. Remember, be remembered. Know, be known. Give birth, be born. So you can kind of see you're basically adding a helping verb, a to be verb, to make this passive voice. Very similar to what we do in English. I mean, well, of course this is exactly what we do in English. It should be pretty easy to kind of see the translation value of these words. Now, some pa'al verbs are not attested in the niphal at all. Okay, so the authors won't include that in charts like this, in the chart in the back of the book as well. Some verbs, though, only appear in the niphal, okay? And when that happens, they don't necessarily have a passive meaning. So an example of that is the vocab word from above, lamed chet mem. So in the niphal, this would be nilcham, right? So that just means it doesn't have a passive kind of sense to it. It just means fight or do battle. Now, you might be able to make an argument that it does have a reflexive kind of aspect to it. Maybe fight. Maybe two sides are fighting among themselves or doing battle among themselves or something. But it is not passive necessarily. Not this word, at least. Okay. I want to skip this chart for just a moment, and I think it will be more helpful to see these four kind of diagnostic features of the niphal and then come back to this chart so that way we can see them at play. Okay, so number one is obviously the signal letter nun out front. Makes it fairly obvious what's going on in the niphal. Now, it doesn't appear in every form, and we'll talk about that in a second. I think we can expect it wouldn't appear in the imperfect, especially because nun is already a weak letter. Okay, and so because of that, in the imperfect, the infinitive, and even the command, the niphal is instead recognized by having three full distinct vowels. So some of you have expressed that we haven't been paying express attention to the vowels in our different verbal stems, and throughout kind of the semester, we have noticed that we need to pay more and more attention to the vowels. Well, one thing we might not have noticed is most verbs will have kind of two syllables. Well, especially in the imperfect, so maybe like yishmor. Yishmor would be the imperfect pa'al of this. Well, in the niphal, remember we'll be losing the nun in the imperfect and some of the other forms. Instead, how we might identify this is that it will have three distinct vowels. So instead of yishmor, it's yishamer. So there's three vowels right there. So again, here we have lahishamer as the infinitive. So three distinct vowels. Okay, so then along with that, the nun does drop out in the imperfect, the regular infinitive, or the infinitive construct, as we might call it, and the command. So the signal letter drops out, but then there will be a dagesh in the first root letter. Now this dagesh will kind of signify that nun that has dropped out. So remember, when letters drop out, they normally will end up as a dagesh instead. So here you actually see that right here. So yishamer, there's a dagesh right here in the first root letter. This is that nun that has kind of dropped out and just became this dagesh. Okay, last kind of diagnostic mark that to me is a little strange. In the regular infinitive in the command, it takes a hey hierik, kind of like the Hitfield did. So to me that's kind of strange, but that's just how it works. You can still see though we're tipped off by three distinct vowels, so he shamer. Let's see if I can jump to, yeah, here's Hitfield. Maybe 24 will be better. So instead, it would be hash lake would be an example. See, that's just two syllables, hash lake. And then in the niphal, it's he sha mer, three syllables. Okay, let's go through this chart now and see that we can identify these sort of things that we've been talking about. So in the perfect, we have nish marti. So again, let me divide this up so this will be a little more helpful. So this is our first singular, second singular, of course masculine, feminine, third singular, first plural, second plural, third plural. I'm sure you already know this. So nishmarti, so I was guarded. Nishmarta, you were guarded. Nishmart, you were guarded. Nishmar, he was guarded. Nishmara, she was guarded. Nishmarnu, we were guarded. Nishmartim, you all were guarded. Nishmartin, you all were guarded. Nishmru, they were guarded. Okay? Then in the imperfect, we have eshamer. So again, notice our three distinct syllables here, and the dagesh that has come into our first root letter tips you off. Something is missing there. Notice this is not normal to have a dagesh in the first root letter. Look over here, look over here. This is signifying something has dropped out. So here we have eshamer, I will be guarded. Tishamer, you will be guarded. Tishamri, you will be guarded. Yishamer, he will be guarded. Tishamer, she will be guarded. Again, kind of typical that our three FS and two MS are the same form here. Probably don't need to point that out, just felt like it, I guess. Nishamer, we will be guarded. Tishamru, you all will be guarded. Tishamarna, you all will be guarded. Yishamru, they will be guarded, masculine. Tishamarna, they will be guarded, feminine. And again, notice it's the same form as our 2FP. Okay. Moving up to the participle. Nishmar, here's our masculine singular, so maybe guard or being guarded. Being guarded is probably the best translation for this as a verb. It could also be maybe guarded one if it's a noun, or even an adjective, maybe just guarded. So maybe you have ish nishmar, or ha-ish ha-nishmar, the guarded man, or something like that. So nishmar, all of these, remember, will have that same sort of translation value, so I guess I don't need to do that for each of these. So nishmar is the masculine singular, nishmeret, feminine singular, nishmarim, masculine plural, nishmarot, feminine plural. Our commands, notice that it is still from our imperfect, these forms are. So here we have signal letters dropping off from our second forms, and in this case, this hey, heuric added. And notice again, three distinct vowels and a dagesh in the sheen, the first root letter. So hishamer, be guarded, you, and that's masculine singular. Hishamri, be guarded, you, feminine. Hishamru, be guarded, you all, masculine. Hishmarna, be guarded, you all, feminine. Okay, and then our infinitive construct. Here we have lahishamer. Again, same sort of things. We have three distinct vowels. We have the dagesh in our first root letter. Lets us know that this is a niphal. So this is to be guarded. And then nishmor, hishmer, or infinitive absolute. So this would be used with another one. So maybe something like nishmor, nishamer. We will really be guarded, or something like that. Okay. Just like the hiphil, the niphal has transformer verbs. Okay, so the yod, in verbs that have a first yod as, or a yod as the first root letter, rather. So they're called first yod verbs. That yod transforms into a holem vav or just a vav, and that's in the hiphil. That's also true for the niphal, though. Sorry. So here we have a chart for Yalad compared to Shamar, and we can kind of see the different rhythms that go on because of that. Okay. One note is that in the imperfect, the yod is a vav with a dagesh, okay, and it's a consonant and not shurik. So looking at this, we see what's going on here. We have a vav with a dagesh in the middle and then a comets underneath it. A shurik cannot take a vowel because it is a vowel. So this lets you know this is not a shurik at all. This is just a vav with a dagesh. Now, why is there a dagesh there? Because it's the noon. The noon has dropped out. The noon of the niphal has dropped out and become a dagesh in the first root letter. Right? Okay, so let's go through this chart. So here we have nishmarti, noladti. Nishmarta, noladta. Nishmart, noladt. Nishmar, nolad. Nishmera, nolada. Nishmarnu, noladnu. Nishmartim, noladtim. Nishmaru, noladu. Noladu, sorry. Okay, then over here in the imperfect, we have eshomer. So again, we know this is niphal from our three distinct vowels, our dagesh in the first root letter. So eshomer, evaled. Tishamer, tivolade. Tishamri, tivaldi. Yishamer, yivalade. Tishamer, tivalade. Nishamer, nivalade. Tishamru, tivaldu. Yishamru, yivaldu. Okay. So just kind of recapitulating this, our transformer verb kind of takes that typical holem vav in the perfect, but in the imperfect it just becomes a vav with a dagesh. Okay. A couple more things in this chapter. Many imperfect forms of the verbs of different verb patterns look alike, okay, and they can be confused. So that's why we kind of have to slow down with some of this, okay? Again, let's kind of go over these four before we look at this chart. So pa'al verbs in the imperfect normally only have two syllables. Okay, so for instance, eshbor, yishma, nikrot. So you can see all of these are kind of divided down the middle and have two syllables like that. Okay, so because of that, if it only has two syllables, it's probably a pa'al verb in the imperfect. Okay, and the pa'al verbs usually have three syllables and a dagesh in the second root letter. Okay, so ashaber. So here we have a dagesh in the second root letter. Ashaber. That's in the pa'al. In the hiphil, the verbs generally only have two syllables, but it's possible that they can have three syllables. And the ones that do have three syllables will have a hirik yod in the middle, so it should be pretty easy to identify as a hiphil. So yashmiya, nakrit. So this hirik yod is pretty good evidence this is a hiphil. And finally, the niphal have 3 syllables and a dagesh in the first letter. So here we have esh, eshaver, yishama, nikaret. Okay. Let's talk about, you have learned one other passive form, and that is the pa'al passive participle, right? So if you remember, the passive participle in the pa'al has a oo sound between the second and third root letters, and that's how we know it's a passive participle in the pa'al. Okay. It has pretty much the same translation value as the niphal. Okay, except that, remember, participles are not tied to a tense. So participles are often used to express present tense, although they can express past and future as well. So, but it's one of the only ways in Hebrew to express present tense. So you might have something like Hasefer Katuv. So the book was written, or is written, will be written. Hasefer Niktav. Okay, the book was written, past tense. We see this is perfect, so probably past tense. Hasefer Yiktev. We see this is a niphal because it's an imperfect and it has 3 distinct vowel sounds. So 3 syllables is also what that means, and a dagesh in the first root letter. So the book will be written is what this would mean. Okay. I think this should be pretty straightforward. Let me know if you have any questions, though. Finally, last part of this chapter, we've already talked about this a long time ago. I actually brought it up when we were talking about nouns and singular plural nouns. So remember, we have in Hebrew, there are 3 numbers, talking about person, number, and gender. There are 3 possible numbers. Okay, there's singular, there is plural, and there is dual. So singular is just a regular ending. Plural is either like the im masculine plural ending or the ot feminine plural ending. There's also a dual ending, if you remember, which is aim. It's used for both masculine and feminine endings. What this dual, you can see dual means 2, so the dual ending indicates a pair, and you don't have to use the number 2, and we might translate it to. So for instance, Hu yashav bamidbar shanatayim. So he lived in the desert 2 years. That's how we could translate this. Hu yaled pa'amayim. He will go 2 times. Okay. Should be pretty straightforward and familiar from, we've already talked about this before. But now we have a lot more vocab words to kind of see this. You can see it's very common to be used with time, right? Also with numbers, so things like 1,000, 100. And also it is common to use for body parts that you have 2 of. So hands, wings, ears, eyes, feet, lips will typically be in the dual. So let's just kind of hear what some of these sound like. We have yom, yomim, yomayim. Pa'am, pa'amim, pa'amayim. Shana, shanim, shanatayim. Elef, elafim, elafayim. Mea, mayot, matayim. Okay, so in these words up here, if you get them in the dual, we'll typically translate them like 2 days, 2 times, 2 years. The ones down here, you could do that if you wanted to, if you came across these words, but this is also just the plural form of these. So it's just a way to talk about hands in general. Although, as you can see, you can also say a pair of hands, a pair of wings, a pair of eyes. Okay, so they can express the two-ness of it, but they don't have to. So yad, yadayim, so a hand, a pair of hands. Kanaf, kanafayim. Ozen, ozenayim. Ayin, einayim. Regal, regalayim. Safa, safatayim. So you can kind of make that out. Now, these are not all of the words that appear in the dual, and I think we talked about this back in chapter 13. I could be wrong, but there are other words that are also in the dual that you know already. So for instance, shamayim means heaven or sky. Some people have taken this to be part of their understanding, part of ancient Israel's understanding of cosmology, that there are two heavens. This idea that there's kind of like a heaven, a lower heaven, and then an upper heaven. So shamayim, the heavens, and that's why it's plural, heavens. But I don't know that we have anything conclusively saying that. As far as I know, it's just an idea. So, well, that is it for this chapter. Blessings to you. Hope you have a great day.